The auditorium lights dimmed, and silence wrapped the room like a heavy curtain. A skinny teenage boy stepped onto the stage, clutching an old guitar that looked as tired as he did. No one knew his name. No one expected much, but in the next few minutes, everything would change. Ethan had never imagined himself standing beneath the unforgiving glare of spotlights. For most of his life, stages were distant dreams, meant for people with polished shoes, shining teeth, and voices trained by the best tutors money could buy. He, on the other hand, was the son of a struggling single mother, raised in a cramped apartment where music was more of a survival tool than an art. His earliest memories were not of playgrounds or birthday parties but of his mother humming lullabies while counting the last coins she had. It was in those quiet nights, with the hum of the city outside their window and the uncertainty of tomorrow pressing down on them, that Ethan first learned how powerful a song could be. His mother's soft voice soothed his fears, turning hunger into patience and sorrow into something bearable. The guitar he carried wasn't bought from a store. It was rescued, from a dusty pawn shop shelf, its strings broken and its wood scarred. Ethan had worked odd jobs, delivering newspapers and cleaning porches, to save enough money to claim it. He didn't care that it looked old. What mattered was the way it sang when he strummed it, as if its soul carried stories long forgotten. When the talent show announced auditions, Ethan almost didn't sign up. He had convinced himself that boys like him, ordinary, invisible, had no place among the dazzling lights of televised stages. But his mother insisted. "Your voice is a gift, Ethan," she told him. "And gifts are meant to be shared." Now here he was, trembling under the weight of eyes staring at him. Judges with sharp pens and sharper eyes. An audience ready to be entertained, or disappointed. His stomach churned, his hands shook, but somewhere deep inside, he felt the whisper of his mother's voice, "Sing, Ethan. Just sing." He adjusted the microphone, his fingers brushing against the metal as though it were a lifeline. The first notes of Hotel California filled the air, delicate yet haunting. At first, a few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Another kid singing a classic, how original. But then Ethan's voice deepened, carrying not just the words, but the weight of every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every ounce of love and pain woven into his life. The audience leaned forward. It wasn't just a performance. It was a story, a confession, a prayer. Every lyric seemed to carve itself into the hearts of those listening. The judges, usually quick to maintain their composure, exchanged glances. One of them, known for his brutal critiques, found his eyes welling up. And then, halfway through the song, something happened. The lights seemed to fade from the room. The boy and his voice became the only reality. His voice was fragile yet unbreakable, trembling yet steady. It carried longing, hope, and the raw beauty of truth. When the final chord strummed, silence hung in the air like a sacred pause. And then, it happened. The audience erupted. Tears, cheers, and thunderous applause filled the hall. Judges stood, clapping with trembling hands. Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding, not sure if he had dreamed the whole thing. He had come to share a song. Instead, he had unknowingly opened a door into millions of hearts. For Ethan, the moment was overwhelming. But for the world, it was only the beginning. When the episode aired, Ethan had no idea his life was about to change. Within hours, clips of his performance spread across social media. People who had never even met him felt like they knew him, felt like his voice had touched something deep inside them. Comments flooded in. "This isn't just a song, it's a soul speaking. I've heard Hotel California 1,000 times, but never like this." The video crossed 1 million views overnight. Then 10 million. News channels picked up his story, calling him the boy who made the world cry. But the most powerful part wasn't the numbers. It was the people. A soldier overseas wrote, "Your song gave me peace after years of war." A nurse shared, "I played your performance for patients, and for the first time in months, they smiled." A widow whispered, "It felt like my late husband was with me again." Ethan sat with his mother, reading these messages in disbelief. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged him and said, "See. The world needed your voice." For Ethan, it wasn't about fame. He realized his gift wasn't just singing, it was healing. His voice wasn't echoing in concert halls, it was echoing in hearts across the world. And yet, he didn't know that the most life-changing moment was still ahead. Fame had never been Ethan's dream. He didn't crave bright lights or roaring crowds. For him, music had always been personal, a secret place where he poured his fears, hopes, and prayers. But now, after his performance shook the world, his voice had become more than his own. It had become a lifeline for millions who saw in him not just a singer, but a reminder of something pure and true. One evening, Ethan was invited to perform at a charity concert for children battling serious illnesses. It wasn't a glamorous venue. The stage was small, the lighting modest, and the audience quiet, made up mostly of parents, doctors, and little ones who had already seen more pain than most adults ever would. Ethan stepped into the hall and felt something different, an air heavy with both sadness and hope. Among the rows of children was a little girl in a wheelchair. Her hair was thin, her skin pale, and her eyes seemed tired from fighting too many battles for someone so young. Yet when she looked up at Ethan, she smiled. It wasn't a wide, carefree smile, it was fragile, like a flicker of light in the darkness. Ethan felt his chest tighten. When the music began, Ethan didn't just sing, he poured every ounce of himself into each note. His voice rose gently, filling the hall with warmth. The children clapped softly, parents wiped away tears, and for a few precious minutes, the hospital machines and medicines faded into the background. There was only music, but Ethan couldn't take his eyes off the girl in the wheelchair. Her smile grew brighter with each lyric, and though her body was weak, her spirit seemed to soar with the song. By the final chorus, she was mouthing the words along with him, her eyes shimmering with life. After the show, Ethan quietly walked down from the stage. No cameras followed him, no spotlight guided his way. He knelt beside the little girl, gently holding her hand. "That was for you," he whispered. Then, with the guitar resting softly against his knee, he hummed a lullaby, simple, tender, and filled with love. The room fell silent, nurses paused, parents leaned in, and tears rolled down faces. In that moment, Ethan realized something profound. The world may remember him for Hotel California, for the performance that shook millions. But for this little girl, his voice wasn't about fame. It was about comfort, about reminding her she was seen, valued, and loved. Her mother, overwhelmed with emotion, whispered, "She hasn't smiled like this in months. Thank you for giving her this moment." Ethan simply nodded, his throat too tight with emotion to speak. That story spread, not through flashy headlines or viral clips, but through whispers of kindness. People shared how Ethan didn't just sing on stage, he sang in hospital wards, in shelters, in places where hope was fragile. His concerts became less about money or fame and more about healing. Veterans invited him to sing at memorials. Orphanages asked him to bring music into their quiet halls. Wherever there was pain, Ethan's voice became a balm. Years later, a journalist asked him, "Ethan, how does it feel to know your voice touched millions?" Ethan smiled softly, remembering that fragile hand in his, the way her eyes lit up brighter than any spotlight. He replied, "For a long time, I thought my dream was to be heard by millions. But I learned the truth, if your voice can touch even one heart, it's enough to change the world." The world would remember him as the boy who sang Hotel California and made millions cry. But those who truly knew his story understood something deeper. His legacy wasn't just about a song. It was about compassion, about using a gift not to climb higher, but to lift others up. And so, Ethan's voice lived on, not just in recordings or viral videos, but in every heart it had touched. In the soldier who found peace. In the nurse who brought smiles to her patients. In the widow who felt her husband's love again. And in a little girl in a wheelchair, who, for a moment, found joy in the sound of hope.